Bachman's Basement is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show.
Welcome back to Bachman's Basement, the place where we crack open the dusty crates of Stephen King's mind and sometimes find something waiting inside that we really wish we hadn't looked at. Down here, we spend time with stories about grief, memory, revenge, death, guilt, and the things that follow people long after they think they've escaped them. Tonight, we're going somewhere a little different. No supernatural town, no ancient evil hiding beneath the surface of civilization, just a lake, a raft, 4 college students, and something in the water that wants to eat them. The Raft is one of those Stephen King stories that takes an incredibly simple idea and refuses to let you get comfortable with it. There's no complicated mythology behind the creature. There's no elaborate explanation for where it come from or why it exists. It's just there. And once you're on the raft, there really isn't anywhere else to go. I'm your host, Chris Patton, and as always, I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Christopher Clawson. Chris, how you doing today, buddy?
As always, I'm doing really well. Been a busy week. Had some family in town, so that's been nice. Other than that, Cassie and I have been watching that new show on FX, The Shards. Have you heard about that? It's based on the Bret Easton Ellis book. Same writer as American Psycho. But anyway, Ryan Murphy produced and really good. Pretty.
I haven't heard anything on that one.
Yeah, it's new. It's only been out for a couple weeks. So there's like about half the episodes are out so far. They're releasing 2 a week. But I guess next week they're just releasing 1. And then for the next 2 weeks, they're just releasing 1. And then there's a total of 9 episodes coming. But anyway, interesting story, sort of setup of a semi-autobiographical. The main character is Bret Ellis, is the writer, in his young life. But it's set in LA in the early 80s. But like I said, semi-autobiographical. It's still very fictionalized, with flourishes of things that were happening, but in a fictionalized sort of state. So it's the idea. It's a coming of age story. They're all like a bunch of rich kids. Their parents are lawyers and Hollywood producers and things. So there's that element, but also then like the element of like cults and serial killers that were pervasive at that time in America. This had been 10 years since the Manson murders in LA. And of course, serial killers like Bundy and Dahmer and things, these were things people were seeing every day on the news and worried about. So that sort of fed into the story. And yeah, I would recommend it. It is, if you like Ryan Murphy's stuff, then you'll probably like it. It's definitely got his fingerprints on it. And it's very well written and acted.
I'll probably end up checking it out. My wife was really into Ryan Murphy there for a while. We kind of fell off with some of the last American Horror Story stuff that he's done.
Yeah,
but that actually sounds kind of interesting.
We did too with the American Horror Story. I guess just kind of got tired. The format was a little tiresome. This has the tone of it, but it is not American Horror Story. It is very much based on this book. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, the last thing of his that we watched was the one with Ashton Kutcher, which was like the beautification drug series that they did.
Oh, I don't
Uh,
think I watched that one. Interesting.
yeah, it's kind of like it's a darker tale on things like GL1Ps or whatever, like Ozempic,
Yeah,
kind of thing. This to the extreme of like it actually changes you into a hot person
that makes me
completely, changes everything about you.
that makes me
Um,
think of that film, The Substance, which
right, and it came after The Substance, so I'm not sure if that played into that idea as well. It was okay. Yeah, it has some good actors in it and some people returning from other Ryan Murphy projects. So if you like
yeah,
his previous stuff, it might be worth watching. But that's the last thing of as
and
far as him as a producer did that I've
this
seen.
is not American Horror Story, or it is.
Uh, I don't remember. I don't
Okay.
know that if it. I don't think that I don't think it actually falls in line with American Horror Story. It may have had a separate
I'll figure it
name. I
out. I'll
just know
look
that
up
he was the.
if
Yeah, if you
Kutcher
look
is
up
in it.
Ashton
I could just look
Kutcher and
him up.
Ryan Murphy, it'll pop up. I'm sure. I can't even remember the name of it, but that's the last thing of his that we watched, and it was it's in that same family because they had like the American Horror Story like standard, and then they did the mini like American Horror Story, American Horror Story
American
tells, and then this came
Horror
out after
Story.
that.
Yeah, this is again like he's got a tone, he's got a look, especially when you're talking about sort of the darker side of humanity, like he's really been exploring over the last decade. This very much is an exploration of that, um, which makes sense. This is Hollywood, early 80s, excess, drugs and sex, and just rich kids with no oversight, sort of their parents are too busy being rich in their own lives. So interesting.
Yes.
Oh, Evan Rachel Wood plays the mom to one of the characters. I like her, and she's good in it. And then Wes Bentley, I've seen him in other things, but I always think of American Beauty. Like that was the one movie where I was like, he's good in that. A long time ago now, like 26 years ago. But anyhow,
So this one it's called The Beauty. Funny enough that you said that. And yeah, it's Ryan Murphy. It's based on a comic book. It's got Evan Peters, Anthony Ramos, Ashton Kutcher, Rebecca
nice.
Hall in it.
Okay.
So I looked it up real quick because it was going to drive me crazy the rest of the show.
Definitely gonna check it out because I'm kind of getting back on the Ryan Murphy train again. Like I'm like, oh yeah, this guy is good. Like I did get kind of tired of the, like you said, the format, American Horror Story, and it's got its own sort of tone and vibe. But he definitely makes good art, and so definitely gonna check it out.
Yeah, it's a weird one. It's like The Beauty. They turn it into a drug, but it's also you can contract it from an STD.
Wow.
In the STD version, bad things can occur. If you would, in Evan Peters is the detective kind of researching what is happening with this the beauty, I guess. It was interesting. I don't know if it was the best thing I've seen Ryan Murphy put out, but that's the last thing I saw. That just came out last year, so it wasn't that long ago.
I think that, well, watch this and tell me what you think. Or it's one of the better things I've seen him do in a while, since early American Horror Story days. Like this is kind of a return to form, I'd say. The Shards is, and again, like it's based on something that was acclaimed, a novel by a literary giant. So, there's that. So it's coming from good source material.
Yeah, I'll check it out for sure. It sounds cool. That one is based on a comic book, like I said. So it's maybe he's taking a page out of the rest of Hollywood's book here and just picking good things to use.
Yeah, well, it's like he's got a good team, of people, across the board of the crew, and sometimes you just got to like take a back seat. It doesn't have to always be about your, what you write. You can lean on other people's writing too.
Well, he has like there was at one point where he was producing like 7 TV shows at the same time, like 2 of those 911 shows on Fox. Like there was like an Austin one, and then the original, and then he had like American Horror Stories, American Horror Story Tales, and was also working on some films. So like, I don't know, you start spreading yourself that thin, some of the quality is gonna kind of drop on some of those shows.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
just how it goes.
I think, yeah, he's one of, like anyone, you get in a situation where things are good and you're like, this won't last forever. I should take full advantage. And, you got to also pick and choose. And that's the thing. I think a lot of people in that situation are like, I'm hot right now. Maybe I should strike while the iron's hot, because it's eventually I'm going to be irrelevant. And so that's the problem with celebrity.
Yeah. So what else did you get into? Anything fun?
I know. I think we haven't recorded since we were playing through the Halo campaign Evolved. I don't think we've talked about that on podcast. So obviously, you and I played that, and that is freaking fantastic. I am very impressed with the taking this, classic game and reimagining it in Unreal Engine 5. And the game looks beautiful, but it still plays like, what you want Halo to be. So what did you think about it?
Yeah, I thought it was great. The cutscenes look incredible. It's cool that they got a lot of the same voice actors to do the cutscenes.
I think it's all of that, I think, is original.
Well, yeah, I don't know if they use the same VOs or if they I haven't looked into it, but I think it looks great as far as like the synchronization, all that stuff. And then, like you said, the gameplay is awesome, and the addition of some newer weapons from other games, I think add a bit to it.
Add the ability to run.
Yeah,
it does improve.
That's a big one.
It improves it. I know I was saying it too while we were playing. I was like, that's something that's always bothered me. And again, I know Halo came long before games like Call of Duty or these other shooters that have dominated the space over the years. But I always thought to myself as time went along, I was like, he's a super soldier. Even if he weighs 1,000 pounds inside that armor, he should be able to run. Yeah.
I mean, it's like a RoboCop theory, right? I feel like there's going to be people that are like, he shouldn't run because he didn't run in the original, and then there's going to be people that are like, before people would have been like, man, he should really be able to run. It's always one of those weird things.
Yeah,
I enjoy being able to run because it makes the gameplay more fun in the as far as the campaign goes, because I played through it so many times. I don't know that it has a huge, other than it helps you get through things faster, which is nice. But yeah, I don't know, man. We weren't playing on hardcore or anything, but it felt challenging enough, and the shooting felt good, like really good. I think better than the last proper Halo game, as far as me liking it. So kind of a return to form there. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. We trucked through like the first 5 levels, and I had to force myself to go to bed.
40% of the way, something like that. Yeah, I know we'll get through the rest of it. Just been busy, but things are opening up here for the next couple weeks, so we should be able to wrap it up here maybe this next weekend.
That's outside of that, I played Red Dead Redemption 2 and continuing through on that. I'm at the second camp.
So yeah, I've got ahead now, but that's fine. I'll catch up.
You'll catch up. I've been not sending anything because I know you're replaying it, and some of the stuff you remember, some you don't. So I've only been sending little things like rescuing Sean and going back to camp is a lot of fun. So I took some time to learn some of his campfire songs, which was pretty fun over the weekend. Outside of that, didn't do too much. Still watching Dragon Ball Z. That's kind of been the constant. I am through the Frieza saga. We're at the Android saga, so the start of the androids. So Trunks showed up. Future Trunks, I should say. Now baby Trunks. is around. So that's kind of where I'm at. They're fighting the first 2 androids in the saga. So yeah, that's been cool too. But yeah, nothing else, man. Nothing real cool happened. I didn't check out too much else. Didn't get a B horror movie out there this week either. I did rewatch Creepshow 2, but that is for this.
Right. So yeah,
we'll get into that a little bit later.
I was aware that that just from my research, besides listening to the story again, that had been put into film in that Creepshow 2, but I did not go and look for Creepshow 2 to watch. But man, this story is just one of my favorite short stories that I had forgotten about, and I'm so glad that you thought to suggest it.
Yeah, I mean, we've been going back through Skeleton Crew, and the past couple of weeks, I guess, we had done things from it before, and I was like, man, we've been skipping all around the Raft, and the Raft is really good, which is kind of weird that both of you and I, we picked some other ones. Now, some of that is time, because we were also working through The Stand, and some of the ones that we have done are shorter than this, but yeah, it's a real fun story. We can get into it if you want here.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. The Raft originally appeared in 1982 as part of the anthology Skeleton Crew. It was a short story, but it wastes very little time getting to its point. We meet 4 college students, Randy, Deke, Laverne, and Rachel, who decide to go swimming at a remote lake after the summer season is essentially over. It's late in the year. The weather is getting colder. The lake is mostly deserted. That should probably be the first warning if you watch horror movies out there. They swim out to a wooden raft sitting in the middle of the lake, and they notice something swimming in the water. At first, it looks like an oil slick, a strange black patch floating on the surface, but that isn't oil. It's alive. The thing moves through the water and eventually reveals what it can do. It looks almost like a giant translucent blob or black sheet floating on the surface, but it's not some harmless piece of pollution. It's something that, as we come to find out, feeds on people. And the way it feeds is particularly nasty. It can pull itself over a person and essentially dissolve them. Story doesn't really get complicated with its monster design here. As we go through it, the lake itself becomes the threat. And the 4 students realize that they're trapped on the raft. They can't swim to the shore. They can't stay in the water. And the creature is perfectly happy to wait for them to make a mistake. And that is the basic nightmare that Kings builds this entire story around. You have somewhere you desperately need to get to, which is the shore. You can see it. You can almost reach it. But the space between you and safety belongs to something else, something in the water. So that's kind of the synopsis of the story.
Yeah, this one it's short and sweet. Man, this one really is a gut punch for top notch, just horror, balls to the wall horror, I think. Like you said, it doesn't waste any time with backstory or origin of the monster. It's very much just there's this thing in the water that at first seems harmless, and then all of a sudden bad things start happening. I really especially
it amps up damn fast.
Yeah, it really does. I especially love the I think that King was inspired of oil slicks on water, being that he plays with that idea of the shimmering different colors that these characters see in the black blob on the water, which is very reminiscent of an oil slick on water, but using that as that's the creature's means to sort of hypnotize you and to lull you into getting closer, and so that it can get you.
Yeah, it's kind of got the evil mermaid thing going for it when it comes to that, or a siren, right? As far as lulling you into making a mistake as a person lost at sea. In this case, a person lost in the lake.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of a neat little touch.
Yeah. It's pretty much right to the point. Not to sort of like jump to the end or to ruin the ending in any way, but no one's getting out of this thing alive.
Yeah, this one definitely, because we've read so many that have had bleak endings lately.
Yeah, we're a little more of the same here, guys.
Yeah, the way that this one's set up, I was like, oh, I'm gonna like the ending of this one when no one makes it out. And I mean, it's pretty much instantaneous where you can kind of figure out like, oh, these people aren't going anywhere. And to some extent, with it being the 4 college kids, it kind of has the slasher film vibe to it as you read through it.
Very much
but
so.
with the monster being, not your traditional slasher, more of like a creature of the Black Lagoon kind of thing. Yeah, so we'll talk about Randy here. Randy's who the story is primarily told from his perspective. He's not really a stereotypical heroic protagonist by any means. He's just kind of a college kid. He's super interested in Laverne. He's very immature. He's super horny. He's very frightened when he starts seeing this thing in the water, and he's trying to figure out what the hell is happening while simultaneously trying to keep himself and everyone else alive. So he does take on kind of the role of trying to keep people alive here. That matters because King doesn't turn the people into action heroes, and it's more of what we've seen out of him from this time period. They're not trained survivors. They're just college students who thought they were going on a swim.
Basically, it's basically like any set of young adults that are in a horror show. That's like, they're in for a bad time from the very get-go. When you watch one of these movies, like, I don't know, it's Friday the 13th or, any of these slasher flicks from this era, this story very much is it's a little like microcosm of, it's not a slasher flick really, but sort of in the same vein, where it's like, they're out on the lake, having a good time, down, to their underwear, sitting on this raft in the middle of the lake, and all of a sudden they're trapped. And yep, it just gets worse.
Yeah, it definitely has like that. With it being college students and kind of the setting and everything, it definitely has the Friday 13th kind of vibe to it. Camp Crystal Lake-esque. Where the only difference is your monster is more like Jaws.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's
just this unthinking, unfeeling, there's no reasoning. So that in that way, it could kind of be like you could relate it, but it's more the setting that is relatable with these. You could imagine them, they're young, fit, college students. So
that takes us to our first death, pretty much. It kind of, like I said, we get kind of into it pretty quickly here. The creature establishes what it can do when Rachel gets a little too close to the water. She sees the thing. The others seem to realize the danger, but by then it's already too late. Creature reaches up, pulls her down. The others watch, and now the situation is changed completely. Before Rachel dies, the lake is just strange, as we noted kind of in the beginning, and as you talked about, it's just like, what is this weird thing? After she dies, the lake is a death sentence. They understand that thing isn't going anywhere. It's waiting, and the remaining 3 stay on the raft. They're trying to figure out how to escape. The creature doesn't need to attack constantly. It can just kind of chill, wait, and that patience is kind of the scariest thing about it. What did you think about the first death and poor Rachel here?
Yeah, the descriptions King uses and how slow and methodical this creature is in dissolving her bit by bit. First it's her arm and she's alive, and she's just the way he describes the sound she's making as she's begging for help, and it hurts, help. It's agonizing. You can really imagine. He's a great writer in that way. He really puts you into the moment that you're in. And so in that way, you know, very it feels like you're watching a movie. I think that he is that kind of writer, that very visual.
Yeah, this one, the idea of something dissolving you a piece by piece is kind of very haunting in the water, especially because it's not most people's natural habitats.
Right. It's a helpless
the description
situation.
of it being like a sheet wrapping around you and parts of you just dissolving is very disturbing.
I remember the description where it's like, I think it was like from Randy, because a lot of this story is like from Randy's perspective, or the whole thing. You know, it's what he's seeing. It's kind of the way it's being described, and it's like, so you're like, as you're reading this, you're like, it's moving, it's eating her arm, and then like blood is like flowing out into the water, and then parts of this blackness is moving out to engulf the blood because it wants to consume that, and that is just like, ooh. Just makes the hair on your arm stand up.
It's like it's leaving no trace of what is happening.
Yeah,
as well. You know, for the next unsuspecting people that want to go to this raft.
The other thing that happens as it finishes consuming Rachel, and is noted that the blob started at a certain size, a certain diameter, and then now it's noted that it's a little bit bigger now that it's eaten. So that gets a little bit bigger every time,
which makes you wonder, like, how where it started. It like, if the funny, cool. Well, I don't want to say funny, but the backstory of it, has it just been eating fish in the lake?
Did it start as like a single cell organism or something? And
is it a symbiote?
Right?
is it venom? Obviously not, because it is actually consuming them. But yeah, it has got that kind of, is it this some sort of alien? Is it something man created that got jumped into this lake like toxic sludge? Or
is it a forgotten part of old nature, you know, ancient life form that just was kind of awakened? Who knows?
I kind of like that. It's like a crypto. Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun.
A cryptozoic or whatever.
That King is really good at that, where it's like he knows when to explore the monster in the story and when to sort of leave it a little more to the imagination. And in this case, that really works, you know, to make it even more terrifying. And also, you know, that, you know, for conversation, you know, just to think about and talk about the possibilities it's more interesting.
Yeah, and I think anyone could have their own take on that and explore it, write fan fiction. I think it's an interesting, this monster in particular is interesting just because of how did it get there? What's the backstory?
It makes you wonder, like, if King was like, maybe he was out fishing on a lake and saw an oil slick and was like, what if that was alive?
Who's dumping that? Who dumped that there? Yeah.
And then he started thinking, what if that was a living thing? And then he probably had that was probably the genesis of this story.
So that takes us to Deke. He's our next major casualty here. He's more aggressive than Randy and doesn't seem okay with just sitting around forever on this raft. So eventually he tries to make a run for it. And that goes about as well as you would expect. And what makes the scene work is there isn't like an elaborate chase scene. He kind of just gets off and there's nowhere to run.
Yeah.
Because you're already trapped. And he suffers much the same fate as poor Rachel here. Any thoughts on Deke's death in particular?
Well, I think the thing that I thought this horrible whatever consumption of Deke is happening, and it's even explored. King is exploring this since he knows it's a question that maybe some readers are going to have, is like, while the thing is busy consuming, it's probably distracted. Like maybe that's your opportunity to, you know, get past it. Like, let it, you know, this person's already dead. or dying, now's your chance, and that's certainly something that is brought up in the story, where it's like, it's not a thought that Randy's having, but it's one of those, like, if only he would have had the conscience of
Foresight
foresight,
conscience of mind.
To think that, because they're only like 50 yards from the shore. So like, as this thing is busy, sadly, eating one of his friends, he should have taken Laverne and himself and said, we're going for it, and jumped in the water and swam to shore. But that's not what happens. They're scared to death and terrified, and at what's happening in front of them, naturally so. But at the same time, it's like, it's easy to sit all comfortable in your own living room and imagine how you would overcome the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I sit my ass still is probably what I would go with. The initial thought, there'll be a boat come out on this lake eventually. Would have been my thought, because my thing is, this thing is dissolving. So if he's already started with Deke at this point, like, he could just release Deke, and Deke isn't going anywhere. He's in the water.
This sort of theme of like, the woods at the end of summer, isolation, separated, and there's no one coming. Sort of like another story of his, Gerald's Game, where it's like the couple goes to their cabin out on the lake to have a romantic getaway, but nobody's out there. Isolation, how a different story altogether, but very much sort of the same idea. You're out in the middle of nowhere, no one's coming, because this is like October. This is not the middle of summer where you could just wait it out, someone's going to show up. This is the end of the season, and people have packed it in, and they're on to back to the city.
Well, as we learned from last week's tale, you can wait it out pretty long.
You can, yeah.
So I don't know, man. The idea of jumping into the water with this thing versus just waiting, I'd probably wait. Realistically, plus, like you said, the shock of seeing 2 murders essentially by this creature. We don't really go into detail of how good of swimmers they are either. Like, what's their speed look like? Like, me personally, I'm waiting this one out.
I think, honestly, like, I try to imagine myself in this, make-believe scenario. And I would like to believe, because this thing doesn't move fast. I mean, it moves, but it's not moving like Jaws. It's not a shark in the water. It's steadily moving along. It probably moves, I don't know, like as fast as a casual swimmer in the water, so you could outswim it, I think. But the thing is,
maybe we've only seen it from the top.
Very true. But as they're swimming out, Randy notices it and sees it, and is a little perturbed by it. But and he notices that it's moving closer, that it's a thing at first he thinks is just an oil slick. And then he notices that it starts moving towards the raft, casually, sort of just, but consciously, sort of making its way over to the raft. So I don't know. Yeah, obviously it's already by the raft, so it's a lot closer than it was as they were making their way out to the raft, which means puts them at a disadvantage to get off of there. So
yeah, they're definitely trapped in the way I've read it. I mean, I'm like, I don't. Maybe that would be. I guess that would be the one way out. Let one person sacrifice themselves and then try. But you gotta think he's catching at least one of you. I don't know.
Right, but that's where when Deke is getting consumed, then that's your chance, like you and Laverne, Randy and Laverne should have made their jump off the opposite side of the raft or sort of off to one side and swam out and around the creature and towards the shore as fast as they could possibly go. And and I don't know, that's what I would like to imagine, that maybe one of them could have made it to the shore, but at the same time that's not what happens here. So obviously they're
That's not
trapped.
what happens.
It's Randy and Laverne. They're stranded on the raft still, and now the sun has gone down, so it's it's nighttime. It's the fall in Pennsylvania on a lake, so it's getting pretty cold, and they're in their underwear. Their clothes are on the shore, and so they're kind of screwed.
Yeah. So that takes us to Laverne, and that leaves Randy and Laverne after Deke's untimely passing, as you noted. And that's where the story gets even uglier. The danger isn't just the creature anymore. It's exhaustion, it's fear, it's desperation, it's going to be cold. And it's the fact that Randy and Laverne are young adults stuck together on a small piece of wood in the middle of freezing water with nowhere to go. They're trying to stay awake. They're trying to stay away from the edges of this small raft, and they're trying to figure out whether they can somehow reach the shore. And eventually they realize that the longer they remain there, the worse their odds of survival become, simply because of the things that we just talked about. And the creature doesn't have to do anything. It's, time is doing all the work for it. And you're going to start getting that time period, which is crazy because they went out to the lake to begin with in Pennsylvania. It must have been a hot fall. But yeah, you risk hypothermia and other things, and that's kind of what's tying into the decision here.
Naturally.
That takes us into our ending.
Right. So the night is happening. Another thing to note is that the creature moves under the raft. It decides that it's in its monstrous intelligence that is an even better place to be. So then they don't necessarily have a choice of what side to try to leave. It can decide how to chase them no matter which side of the raft they want to maybe try to leave off of. But yeah, and obviously they're trying to stay warm. They're trying to not touch the cracks where the boards are and stand kind of together on one of the boards. They're both getting tired. They end up holding each other. They end up having sex, right? That is something that ends up happening.
Which was instant death. So
right. Like they
have to give Randy props, though. He did accomplish his goal that he set out at the beginning of the story. I don't know if it was worth it.
No, probably not. So young adults, hormones running wild, and even in this, awful situation where their friends have been eaten alive and they're close to also being in the same fate, deciding that maybe having sex is pretty important too if you're going to die. So they end up doing that. They end up where she's laying down, and then the thing she rolls just wrong, and it gets her, or it starts to get her, and it's just awful. It's just like,
and this is takes us into the ending, right? Where eventually this leads into what you were saying earlier with Deke and trying to make your escape. Randy, he makes his desperate decision and attempt to get the hell out of here. So he goes to swim for shore. And this is where the story becomes, for me, even more bleak. He gets in the water, he starts swimming, he reaches the shore, he makes it. For a moment, it looks like he's going to survive. And then he realizes the creature isn't limited to the middle of the lake. It has followed him. And the final revolution turns the entire story itself inside out, because the raft wasn't necessarily the prison. The lake wasn't a boundary. The thing has just been waiting. And that's where King leaves us. There isn't a big explanation. There isn't a scientific answer. There isn't a heroic victory. There's just the realization that Randy may have escaped the raft, but he hadn't escaped the thing.
Huh, I wonder if that's how it is in the Creep Show, because the way that the written work goes is he's basically, when she starts getting eaten, he turns his back because he doesn't want to see it, and he realizes there's nothing he can do. And then basically he just ends up accepting his fate, trapped on the raft, and then he starts looking at the shimmering colors in the blob, and then it sort of just ends there, where it's like, that he's basically like, if I just stare at the colors, maybe it will be easier for me to maybe it'll make it easier for me to die.
Yeah. So the Creep Show ending gives you a little bit more than that. The Creep Show ending is definitely Creep Show 2 ending is giving you he goes for it, and then
yeah. So that is, I like that they explore that in the movie version, just because it's like the short story, that the way it works in the short story is it works for a written story, but as a viewer, you want to see somebody make their bid, for escape, and then to come to find out that there just is no escape. That's equally as bleak.
So you listened to the audio version. Did you listen to the version where Stephen King himself was the reader?
I did.
Okay. How did you find that?
I enjoy Stephen King reading his own work, although his voice, he has a little bit of a speech impediment when he reads, I've noticed. Nothing too dramatic, but just a few of the words that he pronounces, or maybe it's just his accent, his New England accent, but I've noticed where it's just a few sounds which can kind of throw you off a little bit as you're listening. But I like hearing my favorite author read his story to me.
Yeah, and so the version I listened to was a YouTube version. Someone had done. I'll try to find that and link it in the description of the podcast itself to give them credit. I don't have the name written down. I believe it's the same YouTuber who did The Man Who Loved Flowers, which was really great. Yeah, sometimes when Stephen King does the readings, I do miss the audio that gets added in from some of the other audiobooks that are out there, King based, and sound effects and stuff. Because I didn't listen to his versions, but is it just more conversational?
He doesn't
being a full audio experience.
Exactly, where a lot of audiobook performers do the voices, and they really get you into the story. They're like acting it out for you. Stephen King in this case is just reading the story in his own voice, as he wrote it, and that's fine. It is entertaining. I like I said, I enjoy that. It's, if anyone out there gets the Audible version of Skeleton Crew, there's a lot of really talented some actors, from television and movies: Matthew Broderick, Michael C. Hall, Paul Giamatti, Will Patton. There's a bunch of big names that read the different stories within the collection. And then, of course, Stephen King reads this one. So there's it makes it interesting, especially these short story collections where you get a different voice on each of these stories. And it just happens to be that this was the one that he read out of this collection.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I might check it out just because I'm interested to hear what his version was like versus the one I listened to, which had, of course, big musical moments and cues and sound and more character voice dynamic and stuff. So I'm curious to see what the YouTube version versus Mr. King himself was like. It's
There's a
always fun
little
to
bit
check
of
that out.
production, but not much. It's more like there's some sound of like the way that a raft would sound on water that's moving, that sort of sloshing sound from time to time, and that splits up the chapters or the as you're moving along. So as he finishes up a section of the story, then you hear that sloshing sound, and then it starts again. So a little bit of that, which certainly is effective with this story being sort of just sort of beat you over the head, sort of horror story where they're just sort of screwed. These characters are screwed from the get-go, making the wrong choice.
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about the Creepshow 2 version. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. It's out there if anyone wants to watch it. You can find that on multiple streaming platforms. There's two other segments. There's Old Chief Woodenhead and The Hitchhiker. The Hitchhiker's kind of a classic that's been retold many, many, many times. Old Chief Woodenhead, I'm not sure the backstory on that one. I did not rewatch these two. I've seen Creepshow 2 before, but I did watch The Raft, which is the probably the simplest story of the three, because it's based off of the story, which is 4 teenagers, a lake, a raft, a monster. That's your movie. And I say teenagers because the movie version, that is one thing that they change. Instead of them being college students, they are teenagers. It's also the way the characters are presented. It's very much, it even goes further outside of just the setting and it being for young adults or for teenagers. It goes more into teenage horror characters that would have been the tradition of that time. So there's a little more personality, more banter, more interaction between the characters themselves. And because we're watching them rather than just reading it, the movie's giving us more external behavior and dynamics on the way that to communicate who these people are, what each one of the characters kind of fitting into whatever their 80s horror character niche would be,
Yeah.
And then obviously the creature itself, you can see it. So, on the page, it's your imagination is doing all the construction there. In the movie, you can see it. It's a glowing gelatinous mass moving across the water. And I don't know, it gives you something more concrete to look at and be scared of if you're into that versus using your imagination. But to some extent, your imagination can make things way worse a lot of times. So it just depends on the kind of person you are. Big difference is obviously the ending. We kind of touched on that. Changes of the characters and some of the circumstances around the surrounding them. It kind of, that the changing them into teenagers changes the dynamic between the characters in a lot of ways as well. And it feels more like a traditional teen horror movie.
Sure. Yeah, that
it also changes the way certain deaths happen. That would be the other big, as we talked about.
Which
there,
I know that a lot of people, I hear this time and again, where people get upset when a film or television version of a story that's based on a book doesn't relay the tale exactly as it's written down. And I'm like, you got the story that's in the book. Like, let the person who's making the thing into a visual medium have a little bit of freedom with it. I don't know. I never get upset at that. I'm like, they're making art out of a thing that they like, that we all like, but let them have a little freedom with it. And you're going to get something from time to time that maybe is fun and different, than the written work. And in some ways, it's actually kind of boring just to get the exact thing that you got in the book. Because it's like, if you know all the beats of the book and you have no twists or turns to be surprised by, I don't know. That's my opinion on it.
Yeah, in the movie, it does, it looks like Creepshow, right? So it's a very practical effect monster.
Yeah.
Which to some people might find that more effective. I think it just depends on the kind of who you are as a person, right? It's very gross and colorful and memorable in the film. I will say that, and kind of makes the movie almost portrays it like the lake itself has been contaminated and that's the creation of this thing. It's not, it's not an animal, it's not a person, obviously, but it plays into that idea.
Nuclear waste monster.
Yes. Yeah. And then, like I said, the ending is different because the book spends the entire time of like they're just trapped on the raft. They make in the movie, the difference being that you get someone actually attempt to make a run for it, make it to shore, and nope.
Exactly.
Which was my thing, was was the thought that I was like, oh, maybe it's better to stay on the raft because you don't know what you're dealing with here. You have an idea after watching it for a few hours, but right. I think it's an interesting ending. In some ways, I kind of like it a little better, but there is something very bleak about just staring and waiting for death, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think that, like I think I already noted, the way that it unfolds in the short story works well for a written work that is a short story. Less is more sometimes. And then, maybe you want a little bit more visual action than just these kids that are trapped on a piece of wood in the middle of a lake and they all die. The end. It's like, that's not so much fun to watch. But when you're like reading descriptions of you get more into these characters' head, as a reader than you do when you're watching it. And so you want things to be happening, movement and such.
Yeah, this is one that I would, because Creepshow 2 is a pretty fun film as well. So for those out there that like the story and have never seen the adaptation from Creepshow 2, it's worth a watch. And you don't have to watch all of Creepshow 2. So if one of the stories is not for you and you just won't care about this one, you could always just skip to that one because it's like I said, it's 3 individual stories within the film. Yeah, so let's do this. Let's go ahead and give our scores. I mean, there's not much more to talk about that I can come up with.
Sure. Yeah. I guess I'll start off. I'm going to give this a Bachman score of 7.5.
7.5. I'm going to go a little higher just because I'd like the Creepshow adaptation. I'm going to factor that in a little bit. I'm going to do I'm not going to go to a full 8. I'll do a 7.8. How about that? A little bit of love for Creepshow 2, I guess. But I was kind of right there with you on it. We came off such a banger last week for me. So,
yeah, this one's good, but there's not a whole lot to think about with this. There's it's disturbing, but it's kind of easy. You could describe it in one sentence. It's a lake, it's 4 kids, it's a raft, it's a monster. They all die. The end. So yeah, but it's well told, it's well written, and so it's worth giving it. It's not very long, so it's worth giving it a read, or if you want to watch the Creepshow version, then there's that for you out there as well.
Yeah, for sure. You want to give out your socials real quick and we'll close this thing out?
Yeah, so if you're looking to find me on Facebook, it's Christopher Clawson, and I'm on Instagram as well, Chris_Clawson 1982.
And for me, it's Christopher.R.Patton on Facebook and Christopher.R.Patton on Instagram and Chris.R.Patton on X. And make sure you check out www.boinkstudios.com. All the wonderful podcasts there. There's Bear Mode, a review of The Bear. I think that is back up in full swing. And Ted Lasso, One Nation Under Ted Lasso podcast. We have, which is a review of Ted Lasso. And Ray's Sports and Slams, which goes over all the sports. And I'm sure there's tons of NFL to talk about. Preseason just started up today as we're recording this. So I'm sure you'll get all of the recaps of preseason weekend if you check that out on Monday when it's live. 6M podcast with Tom Clark. And then also the Tom Clark's main event, which I've done 2 episodes of recently. So feel free to go check those out. We talked about SummerSlam. We did some AEW reviews. Good stuff out there. So lots of things to listen to. And also our other baby, which just wrapped up season 1, Double Meat Palace, a Buffy podcast. We have done all 12 episodes of the first season. We are on a 2-week break currently, but we will be back with a review of our favorite episodes, top 10 and or top 12, I guess, ranking them in our favorite order there, and then giving a combined list of which one was the favorite based on an aggregate score, as well as just talking about favorite moments from the show. And then we'll be back with season 2 before you know it. But yeah, that leads us to the end of this episode. Kind of what makes Raft such a good little piece of horror is it doesn't need mythology, doesn't need a backstory, doesn't need to tell you where the monster came from. It just needs a lake, piece of wood, and something black moving across the water. We talked about Stephen King stories where the horror follows people home. We've talked about stories where the past refuses to stay buried. The Raft doesn't need to follow you anywhere. It just waits. Maybe that's the worst part. Because somewhere out there, there's another lake, another raft, another group of people who think the water looks perfectly safe. And maybe this time they'll be smarter. Probably not. This has been Bachman's Basement. Sometimes the safest place in the world is a piece of wood floating in the middle of the lake. Until it isn't.